The auction hall stank of sweat, ozone, and fear. Neon banners flickered across the vaulted ceiling, advertising exclusive acquisitions in 10 different languages. Marcus Hale pushed through the crowd, his jacket hanging loose over a patched shirt, trying not to look like the broke spacer he was. He had no business being here. But he couldn't stop staring at the stage. 2 small figures stood there, trembling. Their skin shimmered faintly in the shifting light, pearlescent, like liquid crystal. They were children, no older than 10 by human reckoning, clutching each other so tightly their knuckles blanched pale blue. Wide eyes scanned the crowd, darting toward the shadows, never settling. The auctioneer's voice rang out, amplified and oily. Lot 47. Bonded pair. Female, healthy, untouched. A rare acquisition. 2 for the price of 1, ladies and gentlemen. Laughter rippled through the hall. Marcus's stomach turned. He'd seen plenty of ugly things in the galaxy. Pirates carving up freighters. Corporations starving colonies dry. But this? Selling children like cargo? He shoved his hands into his jacket pockets to keep them from shaking. Beside him, a deep chuckle rolled like gravel. Zarlok. Marcus didn't need to look to know. The Kethari merchant towered above most species. His obsidian carapace polished to a mirror shine, 6 eyes gleaming with cruel amusement. Rings of gold and bone dangled from his upper arms. When he spoke, his voice grated. Pathetic little things, perfect for display. I'll break them within a week. Marcus clenched his jaw. He should keep walking. He had no credits to waste, not with his ship impounded and debt collectors sniffing after him. But when one of the girls whispered something to the other, something Marcus couldn't hear, but saw in the way she squeezed her sister's hand, something inside him snapped. The bidding began. To the Erketeken, Usand credits. Xarlok's mandibles clicked. 2-5. A trader across the room. 3,000. The numbers climbed. The crowd jeered and clapped. The sisters shrank against each other. Marcus's chest burned. 5,000. Harlock's voice was casual, as though he were ordering dinner. He smiled down at Marcus. No one will top that. Marcus's hand lifted before his brain caught up. 5,000 and 1. The hall went silent. Every eye turned toward him. The auctioneer blinked. We have 5,001 credits from, the human. Sarlocke's laughter rolled again. You? You don't have half a cred to your name, little man. Sit down before you choke on your own stupidity. Marcus forced a grin, though his heart hammered in his throat. Guess we'll see, won't we? The auctioneer, sensing blood in the water, pressed on. Do I hear 6,000? 6, snarled Sarlocke. Marcus raised his hand. 6,001. The crowd howled with laughter now, some jeering, some egging him on. It was madness. He knew it. He had nothing. Barely enough rations for himself, let alone credits. But every time Sarlocke's voice boomed, Marcus's resolve hardened. 10,000! Sarlocke snapped, irritation creeping into his tone. Marcus swallowed. His throat was dry, his stomach twisted. He could feel the room closing in on him, the weight of 100 eyes waiting for him to back down. He thought of the sisters, their hands clutched so tightly it looked painful. He thought of Zarlok's words, I'll break them within a week. His hand rose again. 10,001. The hall erupted. Even the auctioneer looked rattled now, but rules were rules. 10,001! Going once, going twice! Zarlok surged to his feet, towering over the crowd, mandibles flaring wide. This is a joke! That human can't pay! He's filth! Sold! The gavel slammed. The sisters flinched at the sound. Marcus exhaled slowly. His legs trembled, but he forced himself to stand tall as the spotlight swung onto him. He had no idea how he was going to make good on this. No plan. No credits. But when the smaller of the two sisters dared to peek at him, just for an instant, her eyes shimmering with both terror and a tiny spark of hope. Marcus knew one thing. He wasn't backing down. Marcus stood at the edge of the stage, pulse hammering as the crowd dispersed in a storm of whispers and laughter. The sisters were led toward him by a pair of station guards, their thin wrists cuffed with glowing restraints. One looked up at him with wide, liquid eyes. The other kept her face buried in her sister's shoulder, trembling. The auctioneer descended from the platform, Datapad clutched tight in his hands. He was a narrow, insectoid creature with an elongated snout, his wings twitching in irritation. "Payment!" he hissed. 10,001 credits. Transfer now. Marcus forced a grin he didn't feel. Funny thing about that. The auctioneer's antennae stiffened. "Do not test me, human. The station tolerates these proceedings under law. If you cannot pay, the lot reverts to the next highest bidder." "That'd be Zarlok, right?" Marcus cut in. "Which means these two end up broken in a week, like he promised." He leaned closer, voice low and sharp. "Do you really want his cartel running half your auctions? He doesn't buy, he owns. Soon enough, he'll own you." The auctioneer hesitated, mandibles grinding. Behind them, Zarlok loomed like a storm cloud, 6 eyes burning. The crowd had thinned, but a few lingered, eager for blood. Marcus shrugged. "Station law says the highest bid claims provisional custody until funds are verified, right? Then they're mine, for now." The insectoid twitched his wings again, calculating risk. Finally, he thrust the datapad at Marcus. "You have 72 standard hours. Fail, and ownership reverts." Marcus signed, his hand only slightly shaking. The restraints on the sisters flickered, then snapped open. Both stumbled forward, uncertain, until Marcus crouched low. "Hey, you're safe. For now. Stick close, yeah?" The smaller one peeked out, her voice barely a whisper. You're not lying?" Marcus's grin softened into C, omitting real. "Not my style." They didn't make it 3 steps into the corridor before Zarlok's voice slashed through the air. "Human." Marcus turned slowly. The Kethari merchant blocked the exit, his bulk filling the hallway, mandibles spread wide in a mockery of a smile. 2 armored bodyguards flanked him, hands on their plasma carbines. "You have made a very poor decision," Zarlok rumbled. "Those creatures are mine by right of wealth. You have nothing. The galaxy knows this. How will you pay? Steal? Beg? Sell yourself in the gutters?" Marcus shoved his hands into his jacket pockets, forcing casualness. "I'll figure it out. Always do." "You can't win." Zarlok leaned closer, foul breath hot. "In 72 hours, those sisters crawl back to me. And then I'll make them scream for what you've done." The smaller girl whimpered, clutching her sister tighter. Marcus stepped forward, placing himself between them and the slaver. His voice dropped to a blade's edge. "No, you won't." For a heartbeat, silence stretched. Then Zarlok chuckled, a deep, vibrating sound that made the walls hum. He turned away, his guards falling in behind him. "Run, little man, run out of time." Marcus didn't breathe at the easy until they'd put 3 sectors between them. His quarters on Vados Station weren't much. A single-room cube with a bunk, a cracked sink, and a viewport that showed nothing but black. Still, when the door hissed shut behind them, the sisters collapsed onto the bunk like they'd been holding their breath for days. He sat across from them, trying not to make sudden movements. "Names?" The older one straightened a little, still shielding her sister with her body. "I am Selira. She is Kiru." Her voice was soft, melodic, but carried a thread of steel. "I'm Marcus." He leaned back against the wall, rubbing a hand over his face. "And I'm in trouble." Selira tilted her head. "Because of us?" Marcus barked a humorless laugh. "No, kid. Because I'm me. You two are just the latest proof I can't keep my mouth shut when I should." Kiru peeked out then, small fingers gripping Selira's sleeve. "Why help us? You don't know us." Marcus hesitated. He could have said a dozen things, because it was the right thing. Because he hated Zarlok's smug laugh. Because he was too damn stupid to walk away. Instead, he just said, because someone had to. That earned him silence. Not trust, not yet, but silence without fear. He'd take it. The next morning, Marcus was already out of credits. He sat in the dim lights of a dive cantina, a steaming cup of bitter synth coffee in front of him, staring at his datapad. 10,000 credits. In 72 hours. Impossible. He flicked through old contacts. Half were dead, half were in debt deeper than him. He tried the few jobs posted on the station board, escort runs, freight hauls. But Sherlock's cartel had already stamped blocked over his ID. Bastard moves fast, Marcus muttered. Back in his quarters, Celira was mending Kiru's torn sleeve with nimble fingers. They looked up as he entered, his frustration written plain. No luck? Celira asked quietly. Marcus sank onto the edge of the bunk. Less than no luck. The big bugs already cut me off. Kiru bit her lip. Then we go back? No. The word came out sharper than he intended, making her flinch. Marcus softened his tone. No one's going back. Not while I'm breathing. Celira studied him, eyes too old for her face. Why do you fight if the odds are against you? Marcus chuckled dryly. You'll figure out humans eventually. We don't need good odds. Just a reason. By the second day, the station hummed with gossip. A broke human spacer outbidding Sherlock at a major auction? Every bar and bazaar whispered about it. Some laughed. Some bet on how fast Marcus would die. Others watched carefully, wondering if maybe the human had more than he appeared. Marcus played the rumors. He struck deals, begged for short hauls, even offered to sell spare parts from his ship. Every time, Jarlock's shadow slammed the door. By nightfall, he staggered back to his cube with nothing but bruises and a half-burned jacket from a bar fight. Celira patched his sleeve in silence. Kiru pressed a cool cloth to his temple. He led them, though pride screamed otherwise. When he finally lay down, Celira's voice drifted from the dark. We were taken from a colony ship. Raiders. They sold the crew, killed the old. We ran. We hid. But they caught us anyway. Marcus stared at the ceiling. He wanted to promise safety, to swear they'd never be hurt again. But promises meant nothing without credits. Still, he said, you're not cargo. Not anymore. Kiru's small hand found his wrist. She didn't speak, but she didn't let go until sleep finally claimed them. On the third day, desperation gnawed Marcus raw. He needed a miracle, and fast. Instead, he got a message ping on his datapad, an invitation. No signature, just coordinates in the lower decks. He almost deleted Irabou-Cambin. The meeting place was a half-abandoned docking bay, long since stripped of ships and filled instead with the stench of rust and old oil. Marcus slipped inside, hand resting near the grip of his sidearm. A figure stepped from the shadows. Human, rare enough out here on Veyros Station. Tall, wiry, with a mechanic's grease still smeared across his face. He raised both palms. Easy, Hale. I ain't looking to kill you. Marcus narrowed his eyes. Then why call me here? People usually want me dead after I piss off Sherlock. The man grinned crookedly. Name's Rin Dalker. I fly scrap hauls out of Veyros. Word is, you're either the dumbest human alive, or the one with the biggest brass set. I figured I'd see which. Marcus snorted. Spoiler, both. Rin chuckled, then leaned closer. Look, I heard what you did, and I respect it. Lot of us humans out here keep our heads down, scrape by, don't make waves. But you? You threw a rock at the biggest bastard on station. Yeah, and now I've got 72 hours to cough up 10 grand I don't have, Marcus muttered. So unless you're here to drop a miracle credit chit in my lap, Rin slid a datapad across an old crate. Numbers glowed faintly. A job posting. Hazard pay. 4,000 credits. Cargo escort into the asteroid belt. Risk level? High. Marcus raised a brow. Suicide run? Maybe, but it'll get you closer. And it's work. Xarloc's fingers can't block. Marcus hesitated. He thought of Celira's steady gaze, of Kiru's hand gripping his wrist in the dark. Then he scooped up the pad. Point me to the ship. The run was chaos from the start. Pirates in jury-rigged fighters swarmed the freighter like hornets, and Marcus found himself strapped into a turret seat, blasting until his arms went numb. Plasma streaked past, close enough to fry the hairs on his arms. By the time the freighter limped back to station, half the escort was SCI-FI, and Marcus had a burn across his ribs from shrapnel. But the payout hit his account. 4,000 credits. Not nearly enough. He staggered into his quarters, clothes scorched, exhaustion dragging him down. The sisters rushed to him, Kiru gasping, Celira pale but steady. "You're hurt," Celira said, pressing a damp cloth to his side. "Better than dead," Marcus grunted. He tried to grin, but it twisted into a grimace. "Got us a chunk closer to paying off your freedom." Kiru frowned. "Closer, but not done." Marcus ruffled her hair gently. "Not yet. But I'll find the rest." Celira's eyes lingered on him, searching. "Why? No one else would." Marcus met her gaze, letting the silence stretch. Finally, he shrugged. "Because the galaxy's too damn cruel already. Somebody's got to draw a line." For the first time, Celira's mouth twitched into something almost like a smile. But Jarlock wasn't idle. On the second night, Marcus woke to alarms blaring. He grabbed his sidearm, heart hammering, and shoved the sisters behind him. The door to his quarters glowed red hot before exploding inward. Mercenaries, 4 of them, armored and armed. "By order of Jarlock," one barked. "The death reverts now." Marcus fired first. The confined quarters turned into a storm of plasma fire, the walls searing, air thick with smoke. He dropped one merc, ducked under a blast, and tackled another into the wall. Celira dragged Kiru behind the bunk, shielding her with her own body. When it was over, the mercs were down, 2 dead, 2 groaning and retreating. Marcus's chest heaved, sweat stinging his eyes. He slammed the door controls, sparks still spitting from the frame. Celira stared at him, wide-eyed. "They will keep coming?" "I know." Marcus holstered his weapon, jaw tight. "Means we move." They shifted between safe houses in the underbelly of Veyros. Rin lent them a storage bay for a night. Then an old contact of Marcus's smuggled them into a maintenance duct system. Every step, Jarlock's influence pressed harder. Jobs dried up, doors shut in Marcus's face. The sisters spoke more now, though always in hushed tones. Kiru clung to Celira, but sometimes slipped her small hand into Marcus's without thinking. Celira, though cautious, began asking questions about Earth, about humans. "Your people fight often," she said one night, curled in a corner of the bay. Marcus chuckled, half bitter. "You could say that. We fight when we shouldn't, but we fight when we have to too. And you fight for us." Marcus leaned back against the wall, staring at the flickering light overhead. "Yeah, guess I do." Celira was silent for a long moment. Then she whispered, "Our people. We are not many. Our colony was small. There are no more ships. Just us." Marcus turned to her sharply. "Just you two." Her gaze dropped. "Maybe a few scattered survivors, but not enough. Not a future." Marcus's mind whirred. A rare species, almost extinct. And he just yanked 2 of its children out of Jarlock's claws. No wonder the bastard wanted them. Not just as trophies, living leverage. The stakes hit him like a gut punch. He wasn't just saving 2 kids. He was saving the last hope of an entire people. By the 3rd day, Marcus was desperate. He had 6,000 credits in his account, bruises all over, and less than 20 fiewahi. Let us 24 hours before the deadline. He paced the bay like a caged animal, fists clenching. "Not enough," he muttered. Not even close. Celira watched him, calm but weary. What will you do? Think of something, Marcos snapped. Then he froze, guilt washing through him at the way Kiru flinched. He forced himself to soften his tone. Sorry, I'll fix this, I promise. But as night fell, the reality gnawed at him. There was no fixing this, no last-minute miracle. Karlok had engineered the trap perfectly. Unless Marcus found another way. As he lay awake, the sisters huddled together on the bunk. His mind churned. He could sell his ship. It wouldn't cover half. He could run, but Zarlok's reach was too long. Or he could gamble everything. Not credits. Something bigger. Something so insane it might just tip the scales. Humans weren't known for being smart gamblers, but they were known for going all in when it mattered. Marcus's lips curled into a tired grin. All right, you bastard, he muttered to the dark. Let's see how you like it when a broke human rewrites the rules. The auction hall had emptied into silence, but the echoes of what had just transpired still clung to the air like smoke after a fire. Jarek sat with his head bowed, the small alien sisters pressed tightly against his side. One of them, Aliri, clutched at his sleeve with trembling hands, while her younger sister, Niva, buried her face against his chest. For the first time since he'd raised his hand against the Rautic noble, Jarek had space to breathe, and yet the weight pressing on him only grew heavier. Because now he owned them. The collar bands they wore, engraved with cruel slave codes, blinked faintly in the dim light. If he did nothing, the system would record them as his property within the hour. Property. The word curdled in his stomach. He hadn't fought his way through 3 tours on warfronts to protect Earth's colonies, only to sit here as the kind of monster he despised. He looked at the sisters. Wide eyes. Fragile frames. Trembling in fear. They didn't see an owner. They saw a lifeline. The heavy footsteps of armored guards approached. The auction overseer, a spindly, insectoid Krolith with a glinting monocle, adjusted his ledger. Congratulations, human, it chittered. A bold bid. Costly, reckless. Fascinating. Now, sign here to formalize ownership. The slave codes will be transferred into your registry. Jarek raised his eyes. Cold. Steady. I don't want ownership. The overseer's mandibles clicked in surprise. Around them, the guards shifted uneasily. That is not how it works, the Krolith hissed. The system recognizes only possession. You bought them, they belong to you. Unless, its monocle glinted again, you forfeit them. In which case, they revert to market stock, and the Rautic noble will reclaim his bid by force of law. The sisters stiffened, fear sparking in their small glowing eyes. They understood. Going back meant punishment, cruelty, perhaps worse. Jarek clenched his jaw. His voice cut through the stale air. Then change the system! The overseer let out a dry, rattling laugh. You think one human can change a system built on centuries of commerce? You have no standing. Jarek stood, slow and deliberate, towering over the insectoid. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his ID badge, the insignia of the Terran Diplomatic Corps stamped beside his military honors. I don't need standing, Jarek said. I need precedent, and today I'm making one. The guards tensed, unsure whether to draw weapons or bow. The Krolith stared at the badge, then back at the human's unyielding eyes. Slowly, uneasily, it tapped its quill against the ledger. This will anger the noble houses. They will not forgive you. Jarek's lips curved in a grim half-smile. Good. Let them come. I've faced worse than angry nobles. Then, lowering his voice just enough that only the sisters heard, he whispered, You're free now. Both of you. No one is ever going to separate you again. Aliri's breath caught. Niva peeked out from his chest, eyes shimmering with disbelief. Freedom was a word they had never dared to imagine. But Jarek knew what it meant. By breaking the chains here, in this place, he hadn't just saved 2 children. He'd started a war with the very foundation of galactic slavery, and humanity's name was now etched into it. Word traveled faster than lightships, faster than diplomacy, faster than fear. By the time Jarek had left at the slave market station, carrying the 2 sisters in his arms, every major network across 3 sectors was replaying the footage. A human, an outlier species barely tolerated in the higher councils, had not only defied a Rauthic noble, but had broken the sacred laws of ownership. For the nobles, it was scandal. For the enslaved, it was revelation. Jarek didn't see any of it at first. His focus was on the sisters, finding them food, warmth, and a safe place to sleep in the cramped quarters of his modest freighter. He taught them how to unfasten the cruel collars, showed them that their wrists were their own, and swore to them that no chain would ever be placed upon them again. Aliri asked him once, voice barely above a whisper, "Why? Why would a human spend so much, fight so much? For us?" Jarek crouched down, looking her in the eyes. "Because no one should be forced to fight alone. Because you deserve a life, not a price tag. And because sometimes the right thing hurts, but you do it anyway." Niva, too young to understand the weight of his words, only hugged his arm and said, "Then we stay with you?" Jarek smiled, though his heart ached with the knowledge of the storm he had unleashed. "For as long as you want." But outside, the storm grew. Slave rebellions flared in fringe colonies, where whispers of the human precedent reached chained ears. Nobles began to tighten their grip, deploying enforcers. But with every crackdown, more species began to ask themselves the same dangerous question. If one human could shatter the law with nothing but stubbornness, why couldn't they? The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions. Rauthic nobles demanded Jarek's capture, branding him a terrorist. The Krolith scribes whispered about dissolving his actions. Era sinkinbae. The ledger entries. But it was too late. The ledger had already been rewritten in hearts, not ink. One night, as Jarek sat in the freighter's cockpit, the stars streaming by, Aliri approached. She placed her small hand on his shoulder. "You didn't just save us," she said softly. "You saved more than you know. They're talking about it. Everywhere." Jarek let the silence sit for a long time. He had never set out to change the galaxy. He had only wanted to stop 2 children from being torn apart. But now, he saw the truth in her eyes. He had lit a fire, and fires, once started, did not easily die. Jarek looked out at the stars and whispered to himself, "Let them come. Humanity isn't finished yet." Subscribe to the Void Narratives for more HFY Mao. FY stories where humanity defies the impossible and reshapes the galaxy.